Chapter 5. I wasn't sure if I had memorized the way, and I didn't look forward to being glad because Vince would assume I wasn't coming anymore. He probably was betting to himself that I no longer wanted to do this. Fat chance, he didn't know me. I also didn't know myself, but I liked who I was learning to become. Seeing their reaction to my presence in their black land roused some fear in me. But Vince's house was far from the others. That man was weird. Write it down. Julia Smith killed her maid because she was having an affair with her husband. I was the one in charge now. I won't allow this man to push me around anymore. I had the names, the story. What else could this man want from me? Was the maid black? He was trying to discredit my story. No, as white as a person can be. Eddie Stamford and Jack Taylor both repped a girl. They were all in the same study group, and one day, I pressed the area next to my eyes with my 2 right fingers. I tried to close my eyes and erase the picture of that atrocity playing itself out in my head. I couldn't continue. Did he really expect me to give him the details? What happened? He stopped writing but didn't seem touched by the assault. I said, "Rep, what else do you want me to explain?" His insensitivity made me mad. Where did you find all this information? He was suspicious now, as if I was lying about this whole thing. My imagination would never take me to such dark places. Just trust me. They are all truths. I couldn't make those things up. I would never have thought human beings could be that wicked. I spent a week collecting this information, eavesdropping conversations that took place between Dad and Pastor Phillips while I stood outside Dad's office, listening to Aunt Nolly and her clients, Mom and her neighbors, etc. The moment you become aware of certain things, they all start happening more and more. Have those people ever appeared before a judge? He grilled me. I don't think so. I never thought about it. It was a rhetorical question. I didn't expect an answer. They will never take those cases to court. They never expose their dirt. Besides the usual throwing away of food, not paying certain services, debts, they can only reveal such things in the court of law. Not something like this. Never. I never realized that. How are they able to hide it? They don't. Everyone knows. They just pretend they don't. No one can expose anyone because they all have skeletons stacked in their cupboard. I focused on our mission. Vanessa Moore had her baby in the toilet. She hid her whole pregnancy and gave birth inside their house alone. She then suffocated the baby until he died. She was pregnant from another man, not her fiancé. I don't know what was worse, either being surrounded by evil or noticing I was surrounded by evil. In addition, having to remember those stories and deliver them to someone who showed no compassion for my effort? What happened to her? Only in a few instances did he give me the impression that he was worried. Perhaps he was intrigued. She lived happily ever after with her fiancé. She's living her perfect white life. I smiled. I was becoming exactly like him. What's her secret lover's name? He just had to find a problem everywhere. You really want to destroy us? I want everyone's names. Even the victims. They are never victims. They probably did something. I have never seen anything like that. So much anger, resentment, hatred. I don't even think I hated my sister's killer the way he hated us. Okay, I'll give you all the information you want. Let's say we expose the whole land. Every white person alive, even kids. Do you realize I'm also white? What's going to happen to me? My voice begged him to care for me just a little bit. No one is safe. I had hoped that along this journey he would somehow care for me and forget about this whole thing. I wasn't sure why I was doing this anymore. Who was I against or in favor of? I perused through his books trying to find something else to do besides reporting the wicked. What's the meaning of Vince? I asked whilst going through a book of names that I found in his crowded shelf. The Conqueror. It suits you. I tried to give him a compliment. Vince is not my name. I called myself that. My birth name is Sianda. I don't like that name. It seemed he considered opening up to me, as if deep inside he was lonely. What's the meaning? I kindly asked. Evil. My dad named me. I hated my dad. He was proud of being called evil. He was okay with this whole entire thing about us being evil. My dad killed so many people. I touched my mouth, but it was already wide open. What about your mom? I was scared to know what happened to her. What else was there beside a dad who was a killer? He killed her. My eyes were shocked. Why? Why did that lady kill her baby? Why did those boys rape that girl? Why? He made me look so stupid, like I was not only a virgin but a virgin of this life. I don't know, I whined. My tears surprised me. My heart didn't notify me I was going to cry. I am sorry. That's all I could say. For what? I don't think you are evil. I didn't answer his question, but now I couldn't understand him. I am. Colonization made us evil, he declared. What's colonization? You are. He pointed towards me with his head. What do you mean? I had a feeling he had just offended me somehow. You are a colonizer. Me? I didn't do anything. You are a child or a grandchild of a colonizer. He had a mean look on his face. I don't understand. I knew it was something bad, but I couldn't process it. Colonization. It's like racism, but more subtle. If you think you are evil, why do you want to turn and say we are the evil ones? I don't understand. I was scared of being slapped somehow, but I was ready to protect myself. You don't understand. The thing is, if we all sin, why can some get away with it while others can't? You need to pay for what you have done to us. For these years colonizing our morality, we can only do that if we reverse this land. I will only have peace when you finally pay for what you have done. He slapped his desk, and I think it hurt his hand. If that's the case, you will never have peace. I tried to stop his hatred rants and focused on reading another book. The book was about duality, which means there are two sides of everything. There is an opposite or the other side of something, like peace and war, cold and hot, love and hate, man and woman. Maybe this whole thing was a black people's view, not a universal view. Maybe we didn't hurt them, but they saw it like that. I was so confused. What was the opposite of wise? Was it crazy? Vince sounded crazy to me and was also making me insane. I was scared for him because he didn't seem to be okay. His resentment against us was killing him slowly. He had to move on. Was Vince capable of changing, of letting this go? I finished reading what this duality expert had to say, and I left Vince talking to himself. I had to run to book study. It was hard managing my double life. From Vince's place to the white side of the land would take me at least 45 minutes. Each time I used those 45 minutes to convince myself to give this up, but I couldn't. At church, I enter the room and I see a group of 5 attendants, including the girl who I shared tears with once. Pastor Phillips and Theo are not there, fortunately. A guy wearing a purple shirt turned to me while I settled down to make myself comfortable. How was your day? He had a genuine smile. It was okay. I was nervous. Maybe they knew what I was up to. Can you tell us more? What did you do today? His smile changed from sweet to sour. It seemed he was teasing me, pushing me to reveal my mission. I was paranoid. I helped Mom with the garden. I lied. How could I lie in church? I hated working in the garden. My nails would always end up dirty. And with the way I was avoiding Mom and Dad so much, the lie became even more untrue. Thank you for sharing. I realized I was just scared for no reason. Apparently, they start with that question in every session of the book study. We are discussing love today. Would you like to read today's verse? I couldn't understand why religious people were so polite. Imagine if I said no. And love was always the main theme of these sessions. Like there was nothing else to talk about. What about food? Yes, please. I smiled, but it was not as genuine as his. If Vince were here, he would say no with no remorse. He was plain rude, yet I kept thinking about him every minute. This black man was driving me crazy. A man, that's what he was, not a boy. Maybe that's why I was so intrigued. I have never been so close to any man besides Dad and Pastor Phillips. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a whole multitude of sins. The boy paused as he read the verse. Then they all stared at me, waiting for me to say something. It looked like everyone had shared their opinion on the verse. I gazed at the girl who allegedly had been my friend for a few minutes to see if she could help me. They mean that we should love someone even if the person has sinned, she commented. What she said enlightened me, and I was able to understand the verse better. I think it's not only about performing sins, but carrying sins. The verse speaks to those who have baggage, perhaps a past, but then again, we all have a baggage. And to reject someone because of their baggage is to be completely insensitive. I looked down at my feet. I didn't want to draw their attention to me because they had those prying eyes that were asking, what does this girl know about love? Very good. The guy who welcomed me, Eric, praised me. It was very hard to tell if they were studying to be pastors or lawyers. There was a weird relationship between these two professions, but they both commanded power in our land. Maybe that's why Dad and Pastor Phillips were so close. We are examining the sins. But regarding love, we are not giving enough yet. It says we should love even harder. Love in any circumstance, because at the end, there is only love. I heard a strong voice coming from my left. His name was James. James sounded older than us, yet Pastor Phillips said the book study group was designed according to ages. Very good, I said. I wanted to be the one saying that. Why should Eric be the one to judge our understanding of the book? I had always been pushed aside because I was not a strong believer in the book as others in this land. But after experiencing pain and loss, the book made sense. Eric was scanning for another verse while the others continued discussing the previous one. A part of me wanted Theo to be here, so he could see me trying to be closer to they. He always wanted me to have a deeper relationship with the ones who created this land. But times had changed since I was that stupid girl who would try to impress him. I had Vince to impress now. What does the book say about color? I looked around to see their faces and reactions to my question. The ones who were aware of what I was slowly unfolding now had a different facade from the ones who lived their lives exactly like me a few months ago. It doesn't say anything about color. James was the first to answer. I waited for another to dare answer. Darkness is evil. Eric's answer was predictable. He was a real and perfect product of this land. Is darkness a color? It was a rhetorical question. No one answered. Well, guys, this session is over. Hope you guys continue to read the book and pray to they. James rubbed his nose. He knew. I decided to pass by Aunt's house so she would see how well I was doing now. At least I was pretending to be better. The door to Aunt Nolly's house was semi-open. Maybe she had clients inside. I opened it fully and slowly walked in. I called her, but no answer came. I found her inside the tailor room with a man I had never seen before. He was tanned and very skinny. Everyone will know. You are sick, he yelled at her. I have never seen anyone speak to Aunt Nolly like that. The only person Aunt Nolly quarreled with was Mom. I will kill you. Aunt Nolly said it calmly. I didn't know killing was that easy. Apparently everyone did that. I stepped in. I could have hid myself, but I wanted to stop them, perhaps protect my aunt or to investigate the scene for another story to please Vince. Jodi, sweetheart. Her voice changed so quickly. Come in, sweetheart. How are you? She completely ignored the man's presence as if I couldn't see him standing there. The man also left abruptly, brushing past me without even greeting me. Who was that man? My facial expression told her I was not going to believe the next thing that came out of her mouth. No one. She tried to clean her red and disturbed face. She looked petrified. Aunt? I tried pushing her. What were all these people hiding? Tell me, Jodi, how are you? She sat down and told me to do the same. She pretended nothing happened. She made it seem so easy to lie to me. I am good. I just came from book study. I tried to smile, but the mood was so tense. I'm glad. You probably are learning a lot. The book will help you. She sounded so fake. I didn't believe anything she said. Yes, I understand it better now. Are you sure you're okay? I am okay. She couldn't hide it. Something was wrong. Who was that man? I tried again. To be honest, I didn't want to know what Aunt Nolly had done or hadn't done because she was acting guilty and I didn't want to report her to Vince. No one, sweetheart, forget about it. She looked away. She didn't want to meet my eyes. He said you are sick. A few months ago, I would interpret it as Aunt suffering from some illness. But this wise person I was forced to become knew that man meant something different. He is sick. Men are sick. Men are pigs. I have never seen my aunt speaking like this about anyone. Pigs? I don't understand. I tried to follow her eyes, but she gave nothing. What was she talking about? Everything is sick in this life. Men, love. She began to whimper. She couldn't even control herself in front of me. Love is a mental illness. She touched her head like it was the source of the illness. Who did Aunt love? Aunt Nolly, if you don't have a husband or a child, how come you know so much about love? I always wanted to ask her that question, but I never had the courage. Today, she looked so broken that my words couldn't break her anymore. I hate men. Her eyes were wide open. Does it mean you never loved? I wish I didn't. Unfortunately, I have. She tried to calm down and explain. What happened? Love is going to eat you alive. Give it up if you want to be alive. She left me in her tailor room and went to her bedroom. She was too stressed to pretend she was okay for me. She sounded like she knew I was starting to love Vince because that was the only love I knew I should be afraid of. Loving Theo would hurt, but it wouldn't do that much damage. I could predict that loving Vince would bury me alive instead. I stayed awake without going back to Vince's place because I wanted to collect as much data as I could. How was it possible that the stories didn't stop coming? I went to the book study frequently, and even there, in the house of they, I could hear these people's dirty deeds. It was tiring to carry their stories. It was torturing me. I would even dream about it when I sleep. I was on my way to Vince's house and I would always look out for them. I wanted them to see me, to see that I was on their side, literally and metaphorically. I knocked on Vince's door and there was no response. I knocked again. It was cold outside. Autumn was ready to welcome winter. I was freezing. I opened the door and went inside. He was not in the main room where we would spend hours discussing cruel stories. I walked slowly. I didn't call him again because a part of me wanted to find out something. And maybe he also had something to hide like Aunt Nolly. I heard noises coming from upstairs. His house was very fragile. I could feel the top floor shaking. The floor was vibrating and I could hear sounds, very weird sounds. Does sweat have a sound? I swear I could hear it. I wanted to go upstairs, but I have never been there, and he never allowed me to. I tried to make a noise of my own, like dropping a book to see if he would notice someone had entered his place. The portraits on the wall kept on shaking. I deliberately continued dropping books on the floor. Suddenly, the noise and the shaking stopped. There were two individuals in this house. I could feel it. A black girl came down the stairs to see what it was. I have never seen her in my life. I wasn't sure if I had ever seen a black girl before. She was so beautiful, the prettiest thing I had ever seen. She didn't have clothes on, just a sheet covering her dark body. She looked at me. She didn't seem surprised to see me, but definitely just came down to confirm. She stared at me, didn't say anything, and went back upstairs. Vince didn't bother to come down. In my new life, where I am kind of grown up, I knew they had been having sex. Yes, sex. The same sex Theo was having with that girl. The same sex that drove Juvie crazy for that man. The same sex I wanted to have with Vince. I left his place and walked back home. On the way, I used those 45 minutes to torture myself about the act of sex. I never pictured Vince having sex, not Vince. I could never imagine Vince giving himself to anyone, surrendering himself to another person. Sex sounded as if it made someone vulnerable, and I thought Vince would never allow someone to control him. I woke up excited to go to the book study and talk to Cindy. She said she had had sex before, so she could help me understand it better. How ironic that I wanted to go to a moral power session and talk about sin. I decided not to join the others for study. Instead, I waited for Cindy outside the church. I knew she was there. She never missed any session. I saw her coming out of church. She walked slowly, yet I could feel her energy. She wasn't okay. When you have gone through pain, you start reading people easily, especially the broken ones. I waved at her from the church entrance. There was a garden around church, and I asked her to join me there. She was surprised since I had been avoiding her. "Why didn't you come to the book study today?" She sat cross-legged on the grass. I was busy with something. I sat down next to her, tried to sit like her, but I couldn't. I was not flexible enough. I didn't go because I just didn't want to have to talk about that book. "What are you studying for? What do you want to do next?" She seemed interested in knowing me better, in having a friend. "I'm not so sure yet. I just want to learn more, be more connected to they. I want to be a lawyer, if possible a judge. I want to fight for people's rights," Cindy said while caressing her legs. "It will be possible," I smiled at her. "Do you believe in the book?" She knew I had my doubts about it. I don't know if my incessant questions during the study session revealed what I felt about the book. "I believe in people. What about you? What do you believe in?" "I don't trust people." Mentioning trust always evoked sadness in people, causing their expressions to change. "Why? Have you met people?" She seemed angry like Vince. I laughed at her question. "I believe in justice. The book is not clear on that. I think there should be more intensive preparations for the ones who are going to judge our deeds." Her words revealed she went through something. "What happened to you?" I grew more concerned. If I told you that something happened, I would be lying. Nothing happened, but I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if you will understand. I don't even understand it myself. She was moving her hands hysterically now. "I promise. I will try." I touched her shoulder. Why was everything so messed up? Why was I finding it out only now? It's like you believe in something. You think you are living the same thing, but the other person is living something else. You think it's a fairy tale. You think it's real. Then you find out you are alone in this. She was stumbling, but I continued assuring her by touching her shoulder. "Tell me, Cindy, maybe I can help." I really meant it. Being a part of this mission was making me some kind of warrior. "No one can help me. No one. How can you punish someone for doing something if..." She tried but could not pronounce what she wanted to say. "Remember when you asked if I had ever made love? I told you I did, but I didn't. I didn't make love. I just had sex with someone. Before, I didn't know the difference, but now I know. You can only make love to people who love you, and some people can't love. They don't have it in them. Her soul was in pain. I think I understand. How is sex like? You said it was like flying. I lied. I didn't want to ruin your idea, your perfect idea of something I once believed in. Sex is evil. Sex opens the door for everything bad. Don't do it. She warned me. Why? My lips cursed. I was in love. Madly in love. I decided to lose my virginity to him. We planned the day and everything. I took a long shower, wore my favorite dress. I went to his place at the exact time we agreed on. I thought it was just us in the room. His mom was at school teaching. His dad was also at work. Everything seemed okay. We were kissing, we touched each other. I laid on his bed. I tried to relax, but something was wrong. It wasn't completely dark. I could see the door. It was semi-open. I could see someone watching us. She took a long breath and waited for my feedback. I don't understand. What happened? You can't understand, right? Me too. It took me a while to understand. He left the door open for his friends to watch it, to watch us. We were never alone. He wanted his friends to know that he was humping, screwing, whatever you call it. She had this look on her face that gave me chills. What's his name? Something in me roused me to do something, but I wasn't sure of what to do. Aunt was right. Men are pigs. Peter, she answered as if she really believed I could do something. Peter what? I ordered her to tell me. Something inside me was boiling. Phillips. Peter Phillips. I couldn't believe my ears. He was Pastor Phillips' son. He's going to pay for this, I swear. I stood up and glanced at her. I don't know who named me the hero of Rhodesia, but I had to do something. I need to go. Where? She was the one confused right now. I will tell you later. I left Cindy. My brain and mostly my heart were exploding from such information. It wasn't rape, but you can't do a half-evil act. If you're able to plan something like this, harbor such thoughts in you, then you need to be accountable for your actions. This guy ruined her. How can you move on from this? How could she give herself to someone else? How? Which self? There is no self anymore. Now I understand, Vince. All this anger. You see things that kill you inside and you become angry with the world. You also feel it when it involves the ones close to you or the ones you care for. I can tell now that these things have been happening for years. But seeing Juvie suffering and how she left this world, it opened my eyes. I ran. I ran as far as I could. I passed the tunnel and headed to Vince's place. He didn't like me to come at any time of the day, but I didn't care. When I reached the house, I knocked on his door until my fingers hurt. He opened the door wearing shorts and a sleeveless shirt. He wasn't ready for me. Was he having sex again? Jeez, why? I have a story for you. Write it down. I ran past him without waiting for him to let me in. He was sleepy. What happened? He sat on his desk and began to write. You were right. I believe you now. I couldn't breathe. Calm down. Peter Phillips. Peter Phillips. Vince was delighted knowing that we would expose Pastor Phillips' son in some way. Pastor Phillips was like the moral majesty in our land. Peter Phillips raped a girl. I knew it wasn't rape, but if I told him what really happened, he wouldn't take me seriously. He would discredit her pain. I lied, but I didn't feel bad. It felt good. Can I consider it a white lie? A white lie was another statement of how we really eulogized ourselves. Sad. Who? Who was the victim? Cindy. Cindy who? I went back to my book study memories, analyzing everything, trying to see if they ever mentioned her surname. Remember, I told myself. Miller. I remembered. I breathed easy. I was relieved. Peter Phillips was finally going to pay for what he did. Men are animals. How could they be so shallow and crave so much sex till the point they behave like that? Was sex that good? What kind of feeling would make you unleash so much hunger for lust? Sex was the problem. I repeat, sex is the problem. I left Vince smiling for having obtained some dirty information on Pastor Philip's family. I walked back home telling myself sex was the problem. I didn't blame Cindy for not believing in people. I would feel the same if I also experienced such. I slowly entered our home and quietly ran to my room. I didn't want my parents to know I hadn't been home. Book study had ended some time ago, which meant I had to have been home at least 2 hours earlier. I wanted to be home when they called me down for dinner. I closed my door and quickly changed to more comfortable clothes. Mom called my name from the kitchen. I prepared my face to seem okay so I could freshly face them. Being with my parents was hard for me. I was learning so much, but I knew I couldn't share with them. Jodi, how was the book study? Daddy was already seated at the table. It was very good. I thought about Eric saying very good, like he carried some kind of higher authority. Vince once told me that what he despised most about white people was their arrogance and indifference towards the common man. Have you decided as to what you will be doing next? He was genuinely interested because deep down he wanted me to follow in his footsteps. I am not so sure. I'm not in a rush to decide. What about being a lawyer? There are a lot of women now in Rhodesia studying to be lawyers. He smiled. But it wasn't a full smile. I could see traces of his teeth in his slightly open mouth. I met a girl in the book study who is considering trying that. How long does it take again? How many years? I was being calculative. I mentioned Cindy deliberately not only because she wanted to be a lawyer, but because I knew sooner or later I would need her to vouch for me that indeed I was attending book study. 5 years. You need to work hard, memorize every verse of the book, and then pass the toughest book exam, and then be able to apply it to different cases. He seemed proud of himself. Mom just sat there. Mom and Dad had a weird relationship. Seeing Gunda talking about Juvi and how others described their love, I realized what my parents had was not love. Theirs looked like a pact. Mom couldn't do or say certain things. She felt constrained. There was no other way to describe it. What's the difference between you and a pastor? I never could fully understand the difference. They don't judge. They accept human beings as they are. Not human beings, white people only. He said something that sounded so beautiful, but in Dad's voice it was lifeless. Dad had no feelings. Pastor Phillips tries to save them, and when there is no salvation, Dad makes sure they receive the right punishment. Mom came in with her tenderness and blind loyalty to Dad. It made sense. Our system was not corrupted, I guess. A part of me bent to understand both sides. Be the judge of black and white people, but the other part knew I had to protect the ones who didn't have a voice. I had to concentrate on the plan. There was no mercy for white people. Where was Juvi buried? My question changed the whole mood at our dinner table. Dad's face seemed as if he had just chewed the spiciest food ever. I had been thinking about what Maya Grace said, but there was so much happening that I hadn't known where to start. Where all the bodies are buried? Dad answered. Where? I could see Mom's voice warning me to shut up. It's okay, honey. Dad calmed Mom and touched her hand. She just wants to know if Juvi is safe. It's okay. Juvi was buried next to your grandma. His answer didn't answer me. He told me to shut up in a way. I knew him mentioning grandma was supposed to make me have some kind of peace towards this sensitive topic. Dad was not suspicious of anything, not of me. He would never think that his youngest and only surviving daughter would do anything against her people. I was too young, right? What I had been learning these past few months had instilled in me some powerful knowledge and maturity that I could do anything, especially if I was to get vengeance for my sister's death.